everyone. Thanks for joining us. I see we've got quite a few of you here today. So welcome to the LexisNexis Singapore live chat series, and we're kicking off with a COVID-19 special where we hope to bring you information relevant to the current situation, particularly to help both lawyers and laypersons navigate their way through difficult times. Today, we're going to talk about the practicalities of building an online legal practice, something that we've heard a lot about. But is it really possible for a lawyer to be 100% online? Well, it seems like with COVID-19, most lawyers in Singapore are forced to do so, at least until the 1st of June. So for our first session, we'll be speaking with a lawyer who has actually done it. So Nadia Moynihan is a Singapore litigator and director of August Law Corporation, and she has apparently been working from home almost 100% since May 2018, so almost 2 years now. We're going to find out how she's managed to do it successfully. So this is a live chat session. So for those of you who are tuning in, we have a Q&A session at the end. Just pop in your burning questions into the box below and we will pick that up. So to get started, Nadia, do you really exist? Is the work from home lawyer real, or is this just a mythical unicorn that the tech people have pulled out?
All right, Hannah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm very honored to be your first guest for the Chat Live series. I'm quite excited to be sharing this with everyone because I haven't really spoken about this, about my working from home arrangement to anyone apart from my family and friends. So this is a first for me. Before that, let me just tell you briefly about my background. I am basically your average Singapore lawyer. I graduated from NUS Law School. I had your typical career path where I trained at a big firm, got called and then went to a medium-sized firm where I experienced trial by fire in the practice of commercial litigation primarily. Then I got slightly burnt out and decided to move to a smaller law firm where I had a bit more independence, more face time with clients. Now in August Law as a director, what I specialize in is primarily in general litigation, which encompasses employment law, property disputes, family law, personal injury, probate, contractual claims. We also handle non-contentious work. I fell into this area of practice, actually. I didn't really choose it. And what I mean by that is I didn't see myself as a corporate lawyer. So general litigation seemed to be the only obvious choice, right? I was drawn to controversy, human interest. So in the beginning, I thought I wanted to specialize in family law. But then after doing a couple of years of that, I realized that I shouldn't limit myself to only family law and that I should expand my practice to be able to handle as many areas of law as I could. And I also realized that the skills I acquired in general litigation were more broadly applicable for a wide range of areas of practice. So now I handle many areas of law, which is more satisfying, and it keeps me interested.
Okay, great. So, I mean, it sounds like you have taken sort of the standard path to your legal practice all this while. It also sounds like you are primarily a litigator. Doesn't this area of practice require a lot of in-person time, whether in court or meeting with clients? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so with court work, yes, but I wouldn't be able to do it without the help of my colleagues. They handle most of my court work for me. I have associates who attend PTCs or smaller hearings. I still try to attend major court hearings, high court trials, but coordination with my colleagues is key. I'm very lucky to have the support of my colleagues. We are in a WhatsApp group. We communicate very often. Constant communication is the key. With meeting clients, I don't find that it's necessary really to meet face to face. You can meet with a client face to face and not really be able to connect with them. So that's a separate skill. I meet with my clients on Skype, on Zoom. I have WhatsApp calls with them, normal calls with them. And there are a handful who prefer to meet face to face, right? And for those, I put them in touch with my partner in the office. and I dial in. And usually what happens is at the end of the meeting, the clients realize that they didn't have to meet face to face to begin with. And then after the phone call, after the meeting, they decide from then onwards to have phone calls or Zoom or Skype, you know. Not many clients want to take the time off to meet with their lawyers face to face, take a day off or half a day off and drag themselves to the office when a phone call or a WhatsApp call or Skype will do. You know, and then for international clients, obviously that's not an issue, right? I have Skype meetings with them, Zoom, I call them. And what I've heard from my international clients is that some lawyers won't take on their cases because of the distance, because they're located overseas, you know, which is fine by me, because then obviously I take on these cases for myself, and it widens my experience and it adds an international dimension to my practice, you know.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. So it sounds like what you've managed to do is actually confer a benefit to your clients as well, because they don't have to take time off to meet with you. And in that respect, your practice has become very flexible. If they do want FaceTime with a lawyer, they have that option. They go to the office and you dial in and your partner is there.
Exactly.
And that works well. For those of them who do not want to take that time off, they have the opportunity of just picking up the phone and calling you, and you're perfectly comfortable doing that as well. And I can also see how legal issues are becoming more internationalized nowadays, especially with Singapore being quite small, very connected to the region and to the rest of the world. So definitely, we can expect to see more cross-border elements and more parties having to connect remotely. So I guess as a lawyer, you just needed to get comfortable with that. To get the most out of your practice, right? So you don't say, I'm sorry, I can't take on this piece of work because it's in another country. Like that's no longer a barrier. And you mentioned court attendance, that you try to still attend at least in the High Court, Supreme Court hearings. Have you done any remote hearings or attendances in court so far?
Yes, there was a sweet spot right before the circuit breaker where the courts were holding hearings remotely over Zoom. So I attended those hearings. Unfortunately, what happened was as soon as the circuit breaker was announced, most of these hearings were adjourned or pushed back until after the circuit breaker. Which is personally my experience very unfortunate, because I felt that these hearings were more effective. I'll just give you a background, just a bit of context. So what happens is for a Zoom hearing, you log in to Zoom, right? You put in the chamber number, and when the court is ready, it calls you into the virtual courtroom. You continue to do your work, you continue to check your emails or draft pleadings and all that. And when the court is ready, it calls you into the virtual courtroom. You have your pre-trial conference or your hearing, and that's it. It's so much better than actually attending in person. You know, you have your fellow lawyers that you're chatting with, and the courtroom isn't exactly the most conducive work environment to do your work while you wait. And I've had experiences before where I've waited for 2-3 hours in court just to be called into chambers for 10 minutes. So I really think that this is the way to go. It's quite sad that the courts have chosen to put the hearings on hold, except for essential hearings, which are still going on.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, because it does sound that this has made lawyers' lives better overall if you're able to do work while waiting for your virtual hearing instead of having to sit. Yeah, I do remember seeing lawyers sitting in the Supreme Court with their laptops on their laps in the lobby, like trying to churn out work. Didn't look very comfortable.
There's no way you can. Exactly.
Well, it's great then there's this option now. I guess it'll be interesting to see how this development continues after COVID, whether or not the Singapore courts will take things further in terms of online hearings. But I guess also the courts are, responsible for ensuring, justice, especially procedural justice is not compromised when new technology is adopted. I personally read an article by Richard Magnus on the judiciary's experience in leveraging technology, and he says that justice must not be on the cutting edge of technology as dignity and due process, too important to be jeopardized through potential system failures or malfunction of technology. So on that, I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts on the use of technology and its impact on justice?
Skype and Zoom, they've both been around for quite some time, right? So I wouldn't consider them to be cutting edge technology.
True.
I think obviously there are problems, especially with Zoom, as we've recently learned. But sometimes I feel that lawyers, some lawyers tend to use, technical failures or malfunction as an excuse not to learn these new forms of technology, and in my experience, the vast majority of technical problems boil down to human error, right? Really, really all you need is a stable internet connection, software installed. You need or should do a test run to test out the platform that you just installed. Now, Justice Aidit Abdullah recently wrote an article on 7 tips for online advocacy, and I thought it was great. And really this is obviously I had a head start, right? I had a 2-year head start, so this is slightly easier for me than most lawyers who are trying to pick it up. But it can be done. It really can be done. My only hope is that this technology continues to be used after the circuit breaker. We really shouldn't need the excuse of a pandemic to use these basic tools. We're wasting so much of our time waiting in courtrooms for pre-trial conferences. This extra time that we have can be used to do more work and generate more revenue.
Yeah, and also you'll be passing on the cost savings to clients as well, because if you're billing by the hour and 2 of those hours are spent waiting to go to chambers, that's not very efficient. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how this goes. I understand that Malaysia, the Malaysian courts are actually live streaming some cases as we speak right now, I think. So I'll be checking that out after this session, of course. But yeah, so on that note, let's get into the details of how you did it. So first, what made you decide to take your practice online, and what steps did you take to make it work?
Okay. So what made me decide to do so after I moved to the smaller law firm, like I mentioned earlier, I was very happy working in that firm. I was enjoying the work, but I just felt that my day was not as productive as I wanted it to be. I was spending time, talking with colleagues and chatting, and my day wasn't as productive as it could be, and then there was a period of time where I felt sick. 2 to 3 days I was an MC and I was at home, and even though I was quite sick, I was able to still do a bit of work. And in that period of time, I realized that I was more productive in those 2 to 3 days. And that was when it clicked, that it was the working environment all this while, the constant interruptions from colleagues, and obviously the commute in the morning, and then lunch, and then tea break. It was all these constant interruptions that were making me less productive than I could be, right? And I realized that I could stay at home and in lesser time get more work done. So that was when I decided to redesign my practice to meet my desire for work-life balance. I had more control over my time. I saved a commute in the morning. I saved on my kopi siew dai in the morning, right? I saved on lunch. I was cooking at home, having healthier meals, and I was spending more time with my family. And also, I'd be lying if I said if I didn't tell you that travel was a big part of it. And I wanted to travel, and I wanted to be able to do my work on a remote island in Indonesia or Thailand. Which I've been able to do because of this working from home arrangement. And it's better than sitting in a windowless desk, an office, not knowing whether it's raining or sunny outside. So I really enjoyed it. And how I did it, okay, a few things, right? The first thing I did was in order to prepare for this change, I purchased equipment, right? What I did was first step to purchase my Surface Pro, which I highly recommend. It's portable, it's light, it fits into one of my bigger handbags. Um, and I worked out all the kinks before I decided to work from home. I had to change my habits. I was unfortunately one of those people who could not read off a document without printing it first, right? I'm not even that old, but I could not, for the life of me at the time, read submissions unless I printed it off. So I had to get rid of that. I had to start scanning all my documents, saving it on Dropbox. So those were the first few things I had to do. And then once the equipment was purchased and I had my setup, then I concentrated on developing my client base and expanding my client base, devoting more time to marketing, networking, developing an online presence. I'm on various subscription-based advertising platforms. Um, when you work remotely, the quality of your work becomes so much more important.
Yeah.
You need to be good at what you do. You need to fulfill the promises that you make to clients. The legal industry is very much a personality driven one. So you have to develop trusted relationships with a client, to deliver on your client's expectations. And then word of mouth just takes care. I mean, it takes care of the rest, right? And you find people who can support you. I am so lucky in August Law to have great colleagues who attend PTCs and smaller hearings for me, and we have great coordination. And because I am spending more time at home, I am able to help them by spending more time on drafting, research while they attend court. So it works out for both parties.
It's really good to hear. I mean, it sounds like what I'm really taking away from all this, you mentioned that you redesigned your practice, and it also sounds like in doing that, you also redesign kind of your life and the lifestyle that you want, because we spend so much time at work, and I think even with this COVID situation, all of us have had to, whether we like it or not, take steps to sort of redesign and analyze what can we do now, what can't we do now that we're all stuck at home. But you really took that step proactively. And it was really sounds like it's really about taking control over your time, the 24 hours you have in your day. And also it sounds like it's about being accountable to your colleagues, to do good work, and being accountable to your clients. Because at the end of the day, like you said, the work speaks for itself. You have to be a good lawyer and you have to provide value, regardless of where you are. Particularly since you don't have that traditional structure to sort of like prop you up, like you're sort of like doing that on your own. But it sounds like it's really coming from a place of control and accountability. I think that's really inspiring. Yeah, I mean, do you have any experiences to share? Any ups and downs of that, anything unexpected that came out from it?
Yeah, I mean, to be very honest, when I approached my former boss with this arrangement, she said no. and like I said before, lawyers are very slow to change, right? We are very reluctant to adopt new technologies. And to be fair to her, working from home as a litigator seemed like a radical change, right? But she did give me the opportunity to try it out for 6 months. And in the 6 months, I was able to test out the arrangement, work out any kinks, and basically to work on the coordination with my colleagues. After the 6 months, unfortunately, she decided that this arrangement wouldn't work for her. But ironically, the 6 months made me realize even more strongly that this arrangement could take place just with a more coordinated team. The clients were never an issue because the clients don't care whether you have an office. As long as the work is done, that is all they care about. As long as you're in contact with them and you deliver the work, that's really all they care about. So that was the first down to it, right? But I was lucky in that I was able to find a firm like August Law, and we were able to coordinate very well, and then this thing took off. The upside to this whole arrangement is that I'm more productive. There are less interruptions in my work life. As much as I enjoyed the company of my colleagues, I really needed the focus to do work. And working from home allows you that pure concentration, to do work in less time. And I can tell you that I only spend about 4 to 6 hours a day, and I do more work than when I used to, when I was working in an office.
Wow.
So, so yeah, and then because I'm not in the office most of the time, I save on office overheads. And like you said earlier, these savings are then passed on to my clients, and I'm able to offer more competitive rates for my services.
That's great. That's really good to hear. I mean, it's really inspiring to see that it's possible. It's been done, and it's also been done, I guess, for the past 2 years. So, even before legal technology became cool,
Yeah.
so to speak. So
yeah.
now with all the legal technology that abounds, it should really be a lot easier for other lawyers moving forward. Okay, well, I think we are running out of time, so maybe we can jump into a couple of questions and answers. I think I see a couple in there. Nadia, do you want to sort of like pick out on a couple? I see actually a couple have to do about the Temporary Measures Act relief.
Okay.
Nadia, do you feel comfortable speaking about that in this forum, or would you prefer for viewers to email you their questions? Because this is more of a how do you work online session, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I think it's better because we're probably running out of time, so it's probably better for this to be dealt over email. But maybe we can deal with the more with the questions that are directly on point about how to work from home.
Okay, I think the first question on setting up their own firm and getting a fax line, was that something that you got? I mean, I guess if you have a law firm that you're attached to, that they have their own fax line, that wouldn't have been an issue for you. But what
exactly. Yeah, I mean, August Law has a fax number. There is a physical office, we do have a physical office. So all our faxes get forwarded to our email account so that we can receive them on the go. So even now, when we're not able to go to the office, we do receive any faxes.
So I guess from a practical perspective.
Attendees. Yeah, sorry. And I was just going to say, I know we have a few attendees from Law Society, so they might be able to check this one out for you. I'm not very sure myself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's under the Legal Professions Act, right? In terms of like law firms and setup and stuff like that. I mean, I guess for your experiences as a lawyer attached to a law firm that has a physical presence and that is sort of a, traditional law firm.
I'm back.
And that you've managed to work out an arrangement that works for you.
Okay. Yes, exactly.
So let me see, what are the other questions? I guess there's one of the questions is, can you operate without a physical office? Do you have thoughts on that?
I mean, if you're a corporate lawyer, I think absolutely. As a litigator, especially in Singapore, where we're still very reliant on hard copies of documents, you may need the office space, So I think eventually, as we move with the times, my hope is that everything will be done remotely and scanned copies will be the norm, such that you don't need a physical office. You can actually work remotely. You can actually work from home. That is my hope. But like I mentioned before, lawyers are very slow to change. And I was like that myself. Like I mentioned before, I couldn't even read a document unless it was printed. So I think it can be done.
Okay, so from a practical perspective, your answer is it's really not necessary. I'm not sure if there are sort of legal considerations that law firms may be required to have an office. I guess that's also under the Legal Professions Act, but I'm not a practicing lawyer, so I don't know. I cannot answer that question. Another question is, do you know which service provider you use for online faxes? I guess we're getting to some of the technical questions of what technology you use and what sort of setup you have.
Oh, I have a very simple setup, honestly. I mean, Dropbox is my best friend. So everything is on Dropbox. The benefit or the special thing about my arrangement is that I still have an office and I still have people who are based in the office. So that's why for me it works. and I have a fax machine and everything is all in the office. I don't use it personally myself because everything can be done over email these days. There's no reason why anyone should be faxing anything to me. It still happens, which is why we've arranged for any faxes to come to our email.
Okay. I guess another couple of questions would be, are you able to issue a certificate issuer for Singapore LPA for Singaporeans if you're practicing outside of Singapore? I mean, I think that's a bit of you're not practicing, you're a Singapore practicing lawyer.
Yeah,
so
I'm a Singapore qualified lawyer, yeah. So I don't know about this. I don't know whether this question was intended for those who are not called to the Singapore bar, but I wouldn't be able to comment on it, honestly.
Okay, all right, got it. I guess some other questions. What about access to research materials? Is there sufficient access to online materials aside from LawNet? Like, how do you navigate that?
So I think that would depend on your setup, right? So my firm is a subscriber of LawNet and I believe Westlaw. So that is sufficient for us. We have no problems. It's two associates, myself and my partner. So that seems to do us just fine. Obviously, if you need more resources, Law Society is able to provide them, and I think they have their own resource as well.
Yeah, I guess also from our perspective in LexisNexis, we're starting to see a lot of people move away from, physical libraries. You've got ebooks now, Lexis online research platforms, LawNet, Westlaw, stuff like that. So I guess it's becoming a lot easier. A couple of other questions. So what sort of software are you using? And can you share your experience of that online hearing that you did?
Sure. Okay. So in terms of software, right, like I said before, whatever platform the clients are comfortable with in terms of communicating with me, I'm on it. So WhatsApp, if they're comfortable, Google Hangouts, Skype, Zoom, whatever they feel is best for them, I will just download that, test run it, and I'm on that, right? So that's the first thing. With the hearing that I had recently during right before the circuit breaker, it was really fantastic. It was a PTC, pre-trial conference. I waited for about an hour in the virtual waiting room. And then I was called in, and the PTC was only about 10 minutes or so. There were no connection problems. Everything went well. It was the same, except much better than a hearing in person, because I was able to draft pleadings. I was able to clear my emails in that hour. It was fantastic.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Nadia. I think that's all. Okay, one more question. How do you protect clients' data and maintain your data security? What are your thoughts around that?
Okay, so obviously this is very important, right? And I know that Dropbox is something that Law Society approves of, right? There is going to be a talk by a lawyer from Tembusu Law on the use of Dropbox. So as long as you maintain, you see, the thing about my arrangement is that I still have an office on underground. So there's no difference, So we do apply the protocols in respect of client security and that sort of thing.
That sounds good. I think. I guess there's one more question. Has there been a full hearing done so far?
Okay, I've not had a full hearing. I've only had a pre-trial conference, but I don't see why it cannot be done, right? If we're referring to a chamber hearing, I think it can absolutely be done, meaning the judge and the lawyers would be able to present arguments. Submissions would have been tendered in advance. So I don't see any problems with that being done, and I would be in support of that arrangement. And I do hope that now that the circuit breaker has been extended, that the courts will reconsider will reconsider the idea of postponing the hearings. I don't think that's necessary. I think that hearings can take place remotely. There's been no problem so far based on my experience, and I think it'll be more effective for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. We totally agree. Especially from my perspective on an access to justice and rule of law perspective, we definitely want to see justice not be delayed, because justice delayed is justice denied. So with that, I think we've run out of time. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Nadia. And we're going to wrap up here, but stay tuned. We'll definitely have more such sessions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. My pleasure. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.